Morning everyone, thank you for joining me. Wendy Anderson, justbe.me. Just noticed I've got some toothpaste on my jumper, but it really doesn't matter, does it? And I like to wear these stick-on eyelashes from Primark, but they've kind of changed the eyelashes and they do look a little bit like a spider that's crawled up and died on my eyes. But you know what? I don't care because I get about 10 minutes extra a day that I don't have to put mascara on. Girls, you'll know what I'm talking about with this one. And I just like the way they look, and that's it. So my eyes don't look like pistols in the snow. So there you go. That's leave that with you. Anywho, relationships. So my guides kindly gave me a little forward heads up, and you'll be learning about relationships this year. So last year it was about love and creation. So the learning last year, love and creation, is there is love in absolutely everything, because everything is a creation, everything from all low vibrational emotions to hate, to love, to guilt, to shame, to happiness, sadness, all of it is a creation, and all of it is created from the frequency of love. So can you see love in every single creation? So that was a learning within itself last year, you know, kind of like when you're kind of seeing what some people would deem as something bad, and it's kind of like, that is still a creation. And all these creations are co-created from us within ourselves. So it's kind of like, what am I creating in my life experience? And it is, you know, this beautiful, amazing, miraculous life experience full of learnings and soul enrichments, no matter what it is that you are experiencing. And it is soul enriching, because when you get to a certain dimension and you haven't even got a body anymore, and you're just a poof of cloud love, you know, it can get a little bit dull. So we kind of like put our hands up and say, oh my goodness, yeah, let's do the Alton Towers of Earth. Let's ride this shidazzle. New word for the day, don't know where that comes from, but there you go. Let's ride this thing. And some of us have opted for the kind of like the big roller coaster with the multiple loops in it. You've ordered it. You know that, you know, you were brave enough to hold on and ride this thing. So whatever you have written for yourself, you know that you can handle it. You know. So can I take responsibility for it? And the thing is, where we're taking responsibility for our own creations, we can let the responsibility of others' creations go. So this was my learning yesterday. What is it that I am creating? And basically in the past, I have burdened myself with others' responsibilities, with their healing, with their emotions, with their life creations. And because I've known suffering myself, as we all have, it's kind of like it's so hard to see another suffer. So what you want to do is you want to off-burden a little bit of this suffering, but it's kind of, where does that burden go? Shoulders, neck. So if you are a person just having this life experience, it's a beautiful life experience. I don't need to take anything away from you. I'm just explaining my own life experiences with it. That is a new thing for me. So whereas before I would be wanting to explain these scenarios in order so the person could choose to change it and potentially choose something other than suffering. Suffering is a beautiful path also. It's also a beautiful creation. It's something that we do need to experience in life, because when you are suffering and you are at that pit of Shitsville, this is when we remember we are creators. What is it that I want to choose? Do I want to choose this suffering any longer? And you do get to the point where it's kind of like, heck no, I am over this, right? How can I change this scenario? That's the point where you remember who you are and how powerful you are. You are a creator and you can choose. That is your power, that is your energy, that is your birthright. You've just forgotten it. So the remembrance of it, powerful stuff. So you're in this suffering, you're at the pit of all kind of like suffering and the snakes and everything. And then it's kind of like, right, what can I do? That's when you start coming out of the pit, looking round and thinking, right, I'm looking for something that's going to help me. And there are some beautiful people on this planet that have got the saviour archetype and are quite happy to kind of pass on their knowledge with the other person. Again, is that saviour archetype in balance? All these archetypes are so beautiful, but they have polarity, a negative and a positive aspect to them. Am I continuously saving others and not continuously saving self? Another question, another observation. And again, it's being the observer of the observer without judgment upon it. It's just life. It's just a roller coaster. So it's just a ride of soul nourishment. So for a highly evolved being that has reached several higher dimensions without physical form and are just a poof cloud of pure love energy, it can get a bit dull. So this is why we come in physical form, to literally have a roller coaster ride of life experience. So this is why everything that we are experiencing at the moment is amazing, and it is truly a miracle, no matter what it is that you are experiencing. So yesterday for me was an interesting learning experience. I felt angry, I felt frustrated, I felt annoyed. And I expressed it. So I know some of you, I've done another video about being a cunt. And some of you will be offended by that word. You'll feel it in the knees if you're easily offended. So check in with yourself. It's just a word. What energy you give it, whether it's positive or negative, reminds you that you are the creator of energies. It's just a word. So yesterday I brought out my inner cunt. And for the first time in my whole life, I experienced bringing out this side of me without guilt, without shame. And shame is when you feel like you're just a bad person. I felt like I could express this side of me without feeling like a bad person. That was a completely new experience for me. So the scenario with which my inner cunt presented itself with was family, and this beautifully, my guy said, I'm learning about relationships, beautiful family. We need others to learn on this planet. So can I be grateful for every single person that I'm in a relationship with, good, bad, hard, right, wrong, whatever it is. Can I just love and appreciate that person for having this human life experience with me, no matter what contract they are holding, whether to irritate the shit out of me and trigger me into learning lots of different beautiful things. So yesterday I was triggered into turning up for myself. So I've experienced that program of abandonment in my childhood. Great, brilliant, bring it on, learn that one. In order to purely, in the suffering, choose something different, which is to turn up for myself. So my little morning rituals of turning up for myself has held me in a really good space, kind of like recently. And I am so grateful for that. So still learning to turn up for myself as ferociously as I would do for others with this saviour archetype. Is it balanced? It's got polarity, negative and positive. It's okay to turn up for people as long as I'm turning up for myself. And this is where your inner child grows up and becomes your parent, becomes a part of parent co-creation with you. That you get to choose as a grown-up what you want to participate in and what you want to release yourself from. And this is you taking your energy back and your power back. So yesterday I was feeling angry and annoyed, and I wanted to own some of my power back, to regain some of it. Because basically I'd been giving it away, and my own doings and dealings, created a new word there, doolings. I created it. Everything is my creations, all of it. How can I take responsibility for it? So I'd been putting all of this stress and pressure on myself, basically. So my mum's just had a stroke. So my dad had a stroke last year, passed away early this year. My mum just had a stroke. Luckily, not as bad as my dad. My dad was left bedridden, couldn't care for himself. My mum, it was just a mini one, a warning. And she was only in hospital 5 days, and but as any of you know that are going through these experiences, kind of like hospital trips daily, talking to occupational therapists and things like that, doing evaluations, it's all taking energy. And you've got other things to do, families to look after, and your own stuff to kind of like look after as well. So I was getting to the point where I was feeling overwhelmed with all of it. My sister turned around and says, well, I don't drive, so I'm not going to see my mum. I'll see her in a few weeks. And she rang the hospital and literally left that message with the nurse, the day my mum, the second day my mum was in, and the nurse had to deliver that message to my mum that, your daughter's not coming today. But my mum thought it was both of us. So I got a bit upset. Again, something that, it's not easy to witness. But all part of the life journey to turn up for oneself when feeling abandoned. But difficult when you're in a vulnerable situation, you've just had a stroke. So my sister has done nothing. She's done no organising when my dad passed, nothing. Didn't involve herself in any of it. Just quite happily kind of like landed herself at the bar when we were paying for people's first drink at the wake. Ordered herself a triple brandy. Great. Whatever. So, feeling rather irritated as to the eldest sister, who's 7 years older than me, has done absolutely sweet affair, whereas everything's been landed on me. But at some point, I've agreed to this contract. I'm wearing enough shit on my head that I'm calling it a hat. Sorry, my husband's repairing the window, so it's just distracted me. Sorry. Anywho, so my sister's just decided, no, I'm not. So yesterday I decided to step into my own sense of self-worth and say, listen, Mom, I've delegated 2 jobs to my sister. She doesn't need to, she doesn't drive, I get that. So I've delegated 2 jobs for her that she could do with you, and she doesn't need to drive for it. And my mum starts lip quivering, starts crying, tears and tiara came out, and I'm like, Mum, what's the problem? I says, I've literally delegated 2 jobs for my sister. She's literally done nothing. What's the issue? And she says, well, she works full time and she doesn't drive. And I'm like, well, I'd like to do more work actually, but it's kind of like, the caring for others is kind of like, it's taking away some of my focus away from some of my projects that I'd really love to do. I says, but that's okay, and this is why I want to delegate and share the wealth with my sister, share some of the jobs with my sister, so it frees me up to do the things that I'd like to put a little bit more focus in, Mum, if that's okay. So then I noticed that in my anger, I wasn't shouting, I was just speaking quite calmly, saying that I was delegating this. But in my anger, I wanted change, to create change. My mum didn't like this change. My mum basically putting everything on me was almost a way of her controlling. I know exactly where she is if she's doing for me. I know what she's doing if she's doing for me. How dare she get on with her own life? She's getting on with her own life, then she's not giving me attention. So my mum was in the fear control dynamics of the relationship, which is all beautiful and fascinating and learnings. So if you've got a family member at the moment that is continuously kind of like, I need this, I need that, it's a fear control paradigm from their perspective, because you've cut some cords and they're feeling it. That you are basically you are inwardly saying, the contract that I once held with this relative, I'm no longer choosing, I don't want that anymore. They feel it at some soul level, and it's kind of like, oh, well, that other contract was kind of empowering me and disempowering that person. Now all of a sudden I'm feeling disempowered because I'm not getting that whatever it is, energy from that other person. So if you are coming across stepping away from a family member or friend, spouse, whatever it is in a relationship, if you are stepping away from it, you're going to get a bit of a bashing for it, I'm afraid, but that is all part of being the saviour archetype. They don't like it when you have to step back, but step back is knowing your worth and knowing how much that you can contend with. So Tears and Tiaras coming out, and I noticed how my mum went into a program of trying to spark guilt and shame. So, you know, the conversation went like, I would have done anything for my mum. Yeah, and look where it's got you. You know, you've been complaining about ill health since I can remember. You know, you've never been well and you've always blamed me for ill health. So, you know, and potentially kind of like looking after all these people is potentially part of. So, you know, this is a program that I also learnt from mum, to take care of other people and to put myself on a back burner. No more. I am now in the front runner, and everyone else comes when I have literally filled my chalice, filled my cup full of my beautiful love energy. And then when it's overflowing, I am quite happily, abundantly able to share it with whoever is on my path and whoever it is that I meet. But I am still going through the process of learning this. So there will be days where I just need a little bit longer to gather some of my energy. And woe betide me if you ring me during yoga. Poking the bear, shall we say, and the inner will come out again. If you're feeling, again, offended by that word, you'll feel it in the knees. It's just a word. Whatever energy you give it, positive or negative, you're the creator, so that's your responsibility. Whatever I say is me speaking from the heart, is me speaking from the truth. How another person takes my words is your responsibility. So if you're offended by it, that reminds you that you're a creator being. Beautiful stuff. So, Mom, trying to lay the guilt trip and the shame trip, kind of trying to make me feel like a bad person for not doing all of her bidding, so to speak. So she'd lost control. So this is her way of gaining control back, attacking me and trying to make me feel like I've done something wrong or I'm a bad person. But yesterday I realised the dynamics of this relationship, and I literally, when it started to turn into that sort of conversation, I went, you know what, Mom? I'm done with this conversation, I'm done with this contract. I no longer I'm upholding this contract or feeling like a bad person, because I'm not, and neither are you, but I'm just walking away now. Have an amazing time when I leave. Do something that makes you smile, but I'm literally going now. Thank you, bye. Love you lots. And off I went. And I literally went into the house, and I felt vibrant, energetic, lighter. It was kind of, it felt like I'd have achieved a goal. It's kind of like it's the first time that I have in my whole life, I think, that I felt angry and not felt, which is prompting change because I want to feel valued. And I have not felt like a bad person for wanting that. The first time in my whole life. And I'm nearly rocking up to, to the big 5-0. So it's been many years learning that. So for you, those that are on this journey as well, the guilt, the shame is so burdening, it's so heavy. It's just a program, it's just emotions, kind of feel it and then let it go. Forgiveness, it's made me realise why certain people walk this planet. I'm not religious, but Jesus, whether he was a real man, whether he wasn't, whatever, it doesn't really matter. The teachings around forgiveness, that in every second is a chance of resurrection, is a big, powerful energy, more so than I've actually realised. And I realised that yesterday, that forgiving myself and another person for how they are turning up, just a program, it's fine, and forgiving myself and for not feeling like a bad person for the first time in my whole life because I've got angry. Because ordinarily the program would go, if I was feeling angry because somebody was disrespecting me and I wanted change, as a child I would be punished, isolated, ridiculed for it, and attacked for it. So I learned to oppress all of this anger. So when you're repressing anger, you feel it in the throat. You feel it in the muscles that ache. You feel it in the bones that ache. You feel it in the heart space, because, you know, it's a form of abuse to self to not be able to feel. You'll feel it in the solar plex, because the guilt and the shames are around the liver, which is part of the solar plex system. You'll have kind of like maybe a little tire around the middle if you're carrying guilt and shame. And I've noticed as well, kind of like literally dropping a couple of pounds without the guilt and shame, without even having to do anything. That suddenly these kind of like love handles that once were in guilt and shame are kind of like, they're not, you know, they've all of a sudden, you know, even my body shape has changed just by feeling different emotions, just by loving myself enough from walking away from a situation and not feeling like a bad person. That literally my body no longer needs to feel like it needs to protect itself. So even that layer of fat protection could finally be let go. So we even kind of like holding some awareness of how we are feeling can also bring about bodily changes. And there was something that a message that my guys were saying as well, that even people's face structures may start changing, and people go, you just look different, but I can't put my finger on it. And this is it, you know, that when we are releasing some of these limiting belief programs and really kind of like expressing ourselves in truth and love, it literally can have an impact on the physical form as well. So as well, third dimensionality is very solid, you know, and you rely on the senses to experience this life experience. In 5D, it's not quite like that. You know, things aren't as solid. This is how we can manifest quicker, because they're not as solid, and not every experience is reliant on the senses. You know, this is why different, you know, we've got other senses that are switching on now, which is really, really interesting as well. That it's just a knowing that there's more to this life experience than the tangible, and there's more to it. But this is why it's really important to feel that you can feel that there's something else too, that is more than just the tangible, and there is so much more, and it's infinite to experience. But in third dimensionality, it's its own unique experience. You get to experience lots more expansive band of emotions, you know, so much more. Whereas 5D you don't, you know, 5D there isn't the guilt and the shame, which is what I'm experiencing at the minute. The anger, there's no need for that anymore, because you know your worth, so you don't need to get angry to change anything. Fear, you know, again, kind of like those control mechanisms, you know, if everything isn't as solid as what it is and you're manifesting from it, the fear control mechanisms you just fall away anyway, because they don't work. So all these low vibrational emotions are not particularly experienced in the same way in fifth, which is really interesting, but we've experienced it in third. Can I acknowledge experiencing it for the time that I've experienced in it, for the time that I've experienced it, because my experience is now soon going to be changing. But there's going to be other things to experience as well alongside it that we haven't experienced in third. So obviously when things start to get less solid, things could, as 3D, you believe in the solid, in everything that is solid and tangible. Whereas 5D, when things are less tangible, it means that some quite interesting experiences and realities and opportunities could be invited in. So again, just experiencing third, now going into fourth and fifth, it's going to get exciting, because we've only been in third. Now we're experiencing 3 dimensions. So all of it is valid, all of it is beautiful, wherever you are right now. Whether you found a serenity, whether you found your inner cunt, whether you found feeling again, every single emotion is beautiful. Every single emotion is valid. There's no need to quash it back anymore. How somebody else may envisage your emotions, entirely up to their responsibility. It's their creation. It's their suffering or it's their joy. It's up to them. It's their choosing. But this is how we can turn up more authentically in how we are feeling, and express whatever it is that we are feeling and experiencing. We can just express it now. For those of you that are getting sore throat still, crafting, painting, anything where you can express non-verbally still gets emotions out there into a painting, a creation, whatever it is. So that can really help too. So my future self gave me colouring to express myself when I couldn't as a child. So I will leave my experience with you. Feedback would be amazing, to talk about anyone else that's had similar experiences to what I've had, about needy family members, all of a sudden getting super needy because they know that you've changed contract with them. At a conscious or subconscious level. And this is the thing about contracts with relatives as well, bypassing the karma or walking away from the karma and not choosing it anymore, is you can literally have a conversation with a person and say, you know what, the contract that we once held in 3D, I don't want it anymore and I'm not choosing it anymore. And you can have that conversation if you want. If that person is not receptive to, what the heck are you talking about, you don't have to. And I did have that conversation, and that person didn't have a clue what I was talking about, but that's okay. It was for me to express. That's fine. But if you feel that person is still not going to be receptive, then even you having that conversation with you at a conscious level of, do you know what, the karma with this family member right now, I no longer need that contract to learn whatever it is between this individual that we were learning. And there'll be a learning in that contract, a beautiful learning, something about you, about coming back to your worth and love. It's just a contract, and that person beautifully, before you came incarnate, shook hands with you and said, you know what, I'll turn up and be a little bit of a dick in order for you to come back to loving yourself and knowing your worth. I'll take on board that difficult contract of turning up in that way for you because I love you. So even if that person is showing up in that dick way, can I honour that person for holding that contract in order for me to learn at soul level? There's love in everything. There's love in our creations, and that's where we find love in relationships. And if you can find love in everything, you change the frequency of it. It resonates higher. So even you just finding the love in that difficult relationship with somebody, and you don't even have to kind of be in the experience with them. In other words, you can take yourself away from them and not experience them, and that's still okay too. But it's just holding the love for them, for the contract they held in order for you and your soul to learn. Changes the whole way we feel about the relationship and puts it in a higher octave of vibration. So wherever you are placing things within and without of you in higher octave and higher vibrations, that is the energy you are going to hold, higher octaves and higher vibrations. Doesn't matter where you are, but love is the highest frequency that there is, and our creations are just expressions of that same frequency. So it doesn't really matter, it all gets back to love in ultimately, but we get to choose what vibration we experience. That's the thing. There's nothing wrong in any of it, but we get to choose what frequency. You get to choose what frequency because you are co-creator. Leave these thoughts with you. Send a love to all of you, no matter where it is you're at right now. Take care, everyone. Love you lots. Bye.